Good day, adventurer. Welcome to another new adventure in Skyrim, and actually a brand new adventure. Once again, I'm Nas, aka Chris, and today you're going to be introduced to, excuse me, Glamek Wildsong. Now, you may hear me go back and forth between Glamek and Glamek. So, um, before we get into the story, some things about this playthrough. This is a role-playing playthrough, I'm sorry. And eventually, I'll start listing off talking about pertinent mods. I do different ones for different playthroughs. I plan to do as little fast travel as possible. If I do, I'm going to try to limit it to the carriage services. Now, in terms of how Glamek interacts with the world, it's all going to depend on him and how he plays out. We'll get more into his little bio and story in a moment, but I don't have any plans, any big set things aside from a couple that I will kind of list now. And some of these will make more sense when you get the context of his backstory. But one thing is that he secretly hopes, against hope more or less, to find a stable companion. Another thing is he wants to excel as an individual and be self-sustainable, not depending on others. And with that, he wants to help those in need, those that are kind of bastardized, and again, that will make sense. And the last thing, and this is something kind of immediate, is he wants to get a pet. I think I forgot to mention in his bio, he lost his hunting companion in this shipwreck. So, with that said, I'm going to swim for the shore there and do that, try to engage in this story. So, Glamek is a half Bosmer, half Imperial, hailing from what is a created island of Rhynland, named because there's two peaks that kind of look like rhino's horns if they look at it from the mainland at one aspect of it. So, maybe loot another body. It's kind of west of Solstheim and north of Tamriel, but as I may say, it's close enough where both of the land masses have laid claim to it, but far enough away that no one really cares about it, so they leave it alone. There's no resources there. But he was born amidst a actually, I may be getting ahead of myself. So, okay, yeah, it's a kind of a large island, and running in between it's a big forest and jungle, depending on the climate. There's a hot spring in it, so even though it's in a cold climate, it's naturally. Am I going the right way? Probably not. Goodness, sorry. I'm gonna hit up this island, take a breather, don't freeze to death. I have to go through all my inventory. I did retain some of his gear, but he lost a lot of it in the shipwreck. Let's take a moment here. Warm up. So, as I kind of got to, he was born amidst a conflict there, unfortunately. And while he doesn't know and they don't talk about it and there's no actual history of it, what is alleged is that a female human warrior kidnapped and took as a slave a male elf, and eventually she bore a child. When it was born, it was neither human nor elf, but a little bit of both. That led to when the father saw that, him kind of lashing out. There was violence. She was killed. There was a small slave uprising in response to that. The father was killed. But a handful of elves actually escaped back, and there were people dead on both sides. And when everything settled down, they realized, oh wow, we have a baby here. So they, for the first kind of 15 years of Glamek's life, he was more or less just passed back and forth. He absorbed a lot of both cultures. But was never, really accepted. into either of them. And then typical to what the trope of what is a half-elf nature, he never fit in and never felt like he fit in. He never felt at home, or that here was where he's supposed to be, no matter which side he was on at the time. He made a couple friends and fostered some relationships here and there, but when he turned 16, he actually up and decided to leave both sides and just wandered into the forest and jungle, and that was when he felt at home, probably the most in his life. Now, for some context, it's generally that known that half-elves, for the first, for their adolescent life, they appear generally human or elvish, but more human. And around puberty or adolescence is where they start to get weird, because even if they fit in, they start at that point. So if they're more elvish or more human and they're in the appropriate society, they start to differ. They start to slow. They basically they age slower now, faster than an elf, slower than a human. So in between, which is part of the reason they never really foster relationships. They outlive any humans, and any elves outlive them. So it's just that difference that keeps them from getting too close to any side, I should say. Now, out there he met two individuals, a human named Therese, and another half-elf, actually, named Nitsa, a male. So a female named Therese and a half-elf male named Nitsa. And they grew really close over those couple years. And over that time, it was kind of taken, the three of them all knew that Glamek had an eye for Therese, but going back to the nature of these relationships, it did not work out, and him and Nitz actually had one conversation about it at one point. Let me get here so I can focus again. Oh, wow. Another one over there? Alright. So just, around the time, actually not long after he turned 20, and again, this is the time where he's been aging and everything has been what you could consider normal. Yeah, let's go there. It was around that time that Nitsa was actually wounded in a hunt. He had a nasty fall, and while everything was fine for the most part, the wound didn't set, and he was inconvenienced to the point he couldn't function out here. He was a liability, and no one wants to die out here. So he decided to get with two of his cousin-kin on the Bosmer side of the forest and go live with them. They would kind of not take him in, but live close enough where he could be taken care of and could take care of himself. He was very fortunate in that. Now, the tragedy happened, I guess if it's a tragedy anyway, is the very next night, after he literally, kind of helped carry and say goodbye to Nitsa, he came back, and Therese was weird, and she was on watch. So when he woke up, she was just gone. And at first he was scared, panicked, and didn't know what was going on, so he started to track her. And she went back to the human encampment, and when he asked about it, it was not well received, and there were actually 2 or 3 warning arrows fired at him. He was told to leave. She didn't want to talk to him, and he wasn't welcome. So he was happy that she was safe at least, but it was, he didn't understand what happened and what the deal was. And then he decided that, he was going to leave, and it wasn't even sorrow. It's more of just half-elven nature. He, spent a couple days or weeks gathering some materials, hunting, and paid an actual a human trading ship to transport him. They kind of tried to take advantage of him, and said he didn't have enough gold or septums, but he managed to go anyway. And but what he had to do was sign a contract and work for 4 months as a logger and forager, but apparently that contract was just nullified. Is this a camp? Okay. Oh, no fire. It's okay. So we're going to take a little break here now that we are we've gone through his history. So we got some food and some wine. Anyway, we're going to take a nap here in a minute, warm up, and go through all of our gear and get organized. From here on, we're going to see where the adventures of Glamek take him. I don't have an idea, so this is going to be exciting. Hopefully as exciting for you as it is for me. And I'm apparently in combat with that porker out there. So, this is, I guess, episode pre-1. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask below. Any comments, feel free to ask below. And we will see you when he starts his adventure. Have a good one. We'll see you then.